I want to prepare you before we go into this debate. This was a debate sort of like no other. It was on Fox again. This one was viewed by more people because this is when they bring in the Spanish language channel Univision, I believe. And so it's a co-host. It's so, Latino people who have an interest in the elections, they gain greater access to these debates. And so the last debate was kind of, it wasn't terrible. I've seen worse ones. As you can see in the video, I embraced the chaos that Vivek brought, even though he is a fucking lunatic who just says anything. And as I found out after the video, after the stream, he really did base his ideas about citizenship on Starship Troopers. Unironically, he said it in a podcast. So he is deranged, and he's lost a bit of his shine, coming into this debate. I think people realised he walked away the star of the show last time. He wasn't intimidated. He wouldn't be cowed by established politicians. Ron DeSantis had sort of wilted in the spotlights. Much better performance from him this time. Might even conceivably be the winner. And ultimately, they sort of gang up on Vivek in this one, which I predicted. It's just how these things work. Unfortunately, the moderation in this is really poor. And obviously, when you moderate a debate, there has to be some back and forth, and there is going to be some crosstalk, but this is terrible. The questions they ask are longer than the answers. They don't stop people shouting at each other, and they don't turn a mic off at any point in this. And also, it's way more cringe than what they did in the first one, because it's in, like, Ronald Reagan's sacred fucking, shadow. So, it's tough to get through. I'm not gonna lie. I was sat there last night, and I was like, I was having a dry period. Not as in I didn't piss the bed. I piss the bed all the time. No, I was having a dry period, as in I wasn't drinking alcohol, but I had to have a glass of scotch after this. It was just too much. They even ask a question right at the end, which is one of the worst questions I've ever seen in any political debate ever. So, anyway. You've got to see the intro. You've got to see the intro, guys. So it's see, everything's esports now, dude. It's fucking great. Yeah. Let's debate. Woo, woo.
High in the hills of California's Simi Valley stands a monument to one of the most beloved leaders in our nation's history, Ronald Reagan.
There he is. Looks nothing like him.
The great community.
Cristiano Ronaldo there.
America's 40th commander-in-chief. He railed against big government.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
And sought peace through strength.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
40 years after Reagan's landslide re-election, the Republican Party faces critical questions. What does it mean to be a conservative?
We fight for the truth.
We are not going to worry about what the left and the media say about us.
Like, oh God, it's like this is like a. Do you remember when The Rock and Austin did the legendary WrestleMania promo? And we're gonna do things my way. I hate the way they cut these fucking promos going into these debates, dude, because it's like it really underlines like the political theater aspect of it, and what does it mean to be a conservative, and it's like it's a bunch. Okay, so first of all, Trump didn't turn up again. He remains the front runner, although you know my thoughts on that. I think Trump, if Trump is the GOP nominee, it's a suicide pact, and the GOP aren't serious about winning, because I think he's the only candidate that would lose to Biden. All you have to do, a normal person, younger than 60 ideally, with a working brain, and it's a slam dunk. It's a dunk. It's a dunk. No one will want to do Biden again. The DNC, if they commit down that path, they lose. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Where all the pieces are. We're a long way out from the election. But this debate is utterly meaningless. Like, I mean, I have to say it. There is nothing significant or important is going to come out of this unless you're asking radical questions, which of course they don't. They stick to all the fucking conservatoid topics. So this intro is so tonally disconnected from like what you're about to see. It's actually ridiculous.
What is the key to a thriving economy?
It's innovation, not regulation.
America could do for anyone what she's done for me.
We will stop the spending. We will stop the borrowing. We will stop the earmarks.
What is America's role in the world?
We need to build a military fitted to the widening challenges in an ever more dangerous world.
Sometimes you avoid war by showing you're tough.
And the country faces
Chris
even more
Christie there.
challenges. Would Reagan even recognize
Strange shape.
the country in which we now
The
live?
Trump mugshot.
Candidate seeking the Republican nomination.
Look at this. Look at this. Like it's the fucking Avengers.
For the grand old party.
Oh my
Always
god.
the choosing.
Get me out, like.
Welcome to the second Republican debate of the...
This guy's voice gets on my fucking nerves this entire event because he sounds like TikTok text-to-speech man. Or speech, yeah, text-to-speech. He is deliberately talking like this all the time and speaking in a very strange intonation. Now, yeah, you're also going to notice there's only 7 people this time. They introduce him. Asa Hutchinson, I don't think he could get enough blood. So he's in the crypt. He's there. Now, what happened for this one was you have to be polling above a certain threshold to get to the second primary debate, and Asa Hutchinson wasn't, so he's not there. But we do get some Bergmentum in this. You will appreciate Bergmentum for sure.
where the stage is set for a showdown. I'm Stuart Varney of Fox Business, and I am thrilled to be
And
sitting
I
alongside
am a
film
fucking
broadcast
robot.
channel
I'm like, why is this dude talking like this? It's mental. I can't handle it.
Good evening. Thank you, Stuart.
Look at this smooth
President
intro.
Reagan famously described America as a shining city on a hill. And tonight, 7 candidates will make the case they should be the one to lead that city into a brighter tomorrow. But first, they have to convince you, the voter. Please allow me to welcome our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenas noches a todos. Desde la Biblioteca Presidencial Ronald Reagan, los precandidatos republicanos también buscan su voto para las primarias del partido. Bienvenidos.
And good evening. So let's meet the candidates who have qualified and chosen to be on this stage tonight. They are positioned by the order they rank in the polls, with the highest polling candidate in the middle. Standing center stage, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
He's improved on his smile. He's been working on that. Vivek's haircut. On some fucking Johnny Neutron shit or something.
It's South Carolina, Senator Tim Scott. And former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
There he is.
On the wing tonight, former Vice President Mike Pence.
Who's come as a transparent man for some reason. The only transparent cunt on that stage. And there he is, Bergmentum, his legs all better. Good on you.
A variety of issues important to primary voters. Candidates get 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond if singled out. When their time runs out, we'll all
Oh
hear
god,
this.
it's gonna hurt me.
We have
This
a
is
lot
gonna
of ground
hurt me.
to cover, so please keep it civilized.
That immediately goes out the window.
We are in this spacious, sunny place tonight, designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American.
Like, try not to be sick, but the constant referencing of Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, it's so mental, dude. Yeah, and there's just a plane there. There's just a fucking jumbo jet. Like, look at this stage, dude. It's like, it's insane. It's a Taylor Swift concert, for fuck's sake. It's just mental.
Yet today our nation
I know he's saying it's too quiet. I can't make it any louder, guys. I wish I could. This is a for some reason, Rumble is quiet. And it's me being loud, talking over it.
2 in 3 Americans think the country is on the wrong track.
It is.
And 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
It ain't.
Prices are up 18% since 2020.
Thanks,
More than
Newsbot.
half of the U.S. population has little access to childcare. 85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans want to believe a leader who says, "You can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry." President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket lines where auto workers are demanding...
This is a question, by the way, guys. Like,
security.
look how long this is.
Senator Scott, you recently reacted by praising Ronald Reagan for firing air traffic controllers in the 1980s, saying, "You strike, you're fired." Would you fire thousands of striking auto workers today, Senator?
Obviously, the President of the United States cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first
You did
bill
say that, though, Tim.
in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to overpromise yet underdeliver. One of the challenges that we have in the current negotiations is that they want 4-day French work weeks, but more money. They want more benefits, working fewer hours. That is simply not going to stand.
You've been squeezing them for years, Tim.
Hearing, when a widow came before the committee who was promised pensions from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000 a month. We must make sure that we honor the commitments that we make, and one of the ways that we do that, do not overpromise and then underdeliver and leave the taxpayers on the hook. I'll say this, Joe Biden should not be on the picket line. He should be on the southern border working to close our southern border because it is unsafe, wide open, and insecure, leading to the deaths of 70,000 Americans in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It is devastating. Every county in America is now a border county because fentanyl has devastated Americans in every single state. I will also say 6 million illegal crossings since Joe Biden has taken office. And he eliminated Title 42. The one thing he should do is finish the wall, reinstate Title 42, and get the job done.
Would you fire the workers?
I can promise you that we are going to have a lot of questions on the border and immigration. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy and jobs.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Especially want to talk about this strike for just a moment more. Mr. Ramaswamy, you've said you really empathize with the strikers. You're standing next to Senator Scott. Do you agree with what he said, or do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in nursing homes in Southwest Ohio to make ends meet and pay off our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice. But victimhood is a choice, and we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know what, if I was giving advice to those workers, I would say go picket in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. That's really where the protest needs to be. Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up interest rates and mortgage rates, at the same time wages remaining stagnant. What we need is to deliver economic growth in this country, unlock American energy, drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy, put people back to work by no longer paying them more money to stay at home, stabilize the U.S. dollar itself, and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy. That is how we unleash American exceptionalism. And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision. That is an American vision.
He doesn't realize what exceptionalism means, but that's okay.
Is still the best system known
like
to
exceptionalism
man
isn't a school of thought where everyone's
and we should not apologize for it. That's what it means to be an American.
That's what it means, dude. Woo! Look at that. Look at the front row. They're like absolutely stoic. They're not there for dinner.
The CEOs of
those
General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis make 336 times the number of rank and file workers. That's just part of a wider income inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls 1/5 of all income. Vice President Pence, last week you said you side with American workers, but you also support how these companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful
Pence
forum.
is a pussy in this, dude.
Look, I do disagree with something Tim
He's
Scott just
so
said.
fucking
Joe Biden
middle of the
doesn't
road.
belong on a picket line.
He's
He
done.
belongs
He's
on the
fucking
unemployment
toast.
line.
There you go. See,
Look,
I talked
I'm
over
from
his
the
joke.
second leading manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the...
How these companies operate.
I'll let him get his joke in. It's all downhill
Thank
for
you
me.
for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful forum. Look, I do disagree with something Tim Scott just said. Joe Biden doesn't belong on a picket line. He belongs on the unemployment line. Look, I'm from the second leading manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about
He makes a worse joke later on, where he says something about I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years. And he's talking about his wife, and I'm like,
and talking about disparity.
Why have you said that?
I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics
Yeah, for real.
has failed.
You'll see.
Wages are not keeping
You'll
up
all
with
see.
inflation. Auto workers
This is like the best part. This is where at least it feels like a debate, you know. It goes off the fucking rails in about 20 minutes.
Deal agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit. We ought to repeal the Green New Deal, get rid of the mandates. And
Skipping straight to repealing it hasn't even passed
American
yet, the Green New Deal, by the way. But yeah, let's repeal it. Good idea, Mike.
Into the graveyard. And beyond that also, as President of the United States, I'll be standing with workers all across America, and I'll be standing for the right to work of every American to join a union or not join a union as they decide.
Senator Scott, you were mentioned. Will you care to respond?
There's no doubt that Joe Biden needs to be fired. That's why I'm running for president. I look forward to being the next president of the United States. I will also say,
you're going to be waiting a while.
I know America can do for anyone what she's done for me. It's why we're focusing on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. Growing up in a single-parent household, I wondered if the American dream would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news for every single child, whether you're in the inner cities of Chicago
Look in
or
the camera.
rural parts
Look in the
of
camera,
Iowa.
Tim, that's it.
America and the dream, it is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. God bless these United States of America.
You will remember, of course, I did tell you last time, that's like his go-to thing. Like, he's the bootstrap guy. He's the, like talks all, folksy and gosh golly, and, if I can do it, anyone can do it. The American dream worked for me. It's just like he works that in every time he speaks in public, and it's been that way, I want to say about 12 fucking years. It's just like a greatest hits album at this point.
Governor Haley, you raise your hand.
Yeah, I think we need to look at exactly what happened. Biden showed up on that picket line, but why are those workers actually there? It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised the inflation. So when you look at the fact that we are paying higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, $7,000 more a year for families, what we need to do is I came out with an economic plan, eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America and collapsing those brackets. Let's get rid of unfair distortions like the state and local tax that they give to wealthy people in blue states and paid by red states. And let's make sure we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary. They made the corporate taxes permanent. Let's focus on what it takes to get more cash in the pockets of workers. That's when we'll be able to deal with strikes like this, not sitting on a picket line like Joe Biden is.
Now, unfortunately, Nikki Haley overlooks the fact that already happened. Some of those economic proposals happened under the Trump administration. She's not particularly strong on economics, as old Nikki Haley. But I have to say, I want this to be in your mind as you watch her debate performance. A lot of people, particularly I noticed the other women conservative pundits out there, like Megyn Kelly, people like that, they all said Nikki Haley came across as really unlikable in this debate. Now, I already don't like her, but I didn't think she was especially unlikable in this debate. She talks the usual shit. She's hawkish, We're going to get into the fucking Ukraine war again and all that nonsense. But, I don't know. I just don't think... She actually, for me, made like a number of good points. I thought it was a relatively strong debate performance on policy, just not on economics. She doesn't really seem to know much about that.
Thank you, Governor Haley. We have other questions to get to about economy. Allow me to.
I just have to. I'm sorry.
Allow me to.
I'm sorry. I have to jump in because we're missing the point,
Here's
and
some
every other
Bergman.
network is missing the point. The reason why people are
He does
striking
this
in
loads.
Detroit is because Joe
he knows
Biden's
he's going to get no play.
interference with capital markets and with free markets. The subsidies, we're subsidizing the automakers and we're subsidizing the cars and a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when you decide that we're going to take all of your tax
See, by the way,
money,
he's the only
take $1
dude who
billion,
actually addressed the
subsidize
picket
a
line
certain type
question.
of vehicle, and the batteries come from China. China controls 85% of the rare earth minerals. They're
China.
called rare earth because they're measured in parts per million. China is moving 100,000 pounds of earth in Indonesia, in Africa. They're literally destroying the planet so that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized here. That's why they're striking, because they need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car. Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
Bergman, feel the Berg.
The topic of economy, but allow me to follow question to Governor Christie. The government will shut down if Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist protégés, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP. If the government shuts down, should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do
Not
their
like
job,
you.
and they've been
You were in the
failing
Trump
at doing the
administration, you
job for a
mad cunt.
very long time. And let's be honest about this with the voters. During the Trump administration, they added $7 trillion in national debt. And now the Biden administration has put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the can down the road. And the inflation that Nikki spoke about is absolutely right, and it's caused by government spending. And that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight. And yet we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides
I'm
in
listening
his
to you.
basement and won't answer as to why he's raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions for the people you talk about who are suffering. And if the government closes, it's the blame. It is to the blame of everyone in Washington, D.C., who has failed to do their job and just plays to the grandstand.
Now it starts happening.
If we want to get things done, here's how we get it done in Washington. We must find a way.
Can we please respect the time?
We can get it done.
Governor DeSantis, you haven't spoken. Please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please,
to be fair, when I say in the
crocodile
administration,
tears for these people,
it
they
was
need
just
to
it
change
was just a
what's going on.
transition
Where's
thing.
Joe Biden?
But he endorsed
He's
him,
completely missing in action for
and
leadership.
he lobbied.
And
He was a
who else
lobbyist.
is missing in action?
In
Donald Trump is
2018
missing
as well.
in action. He should be on this stage
So
tonight.
technically, when I say
I'm
not technically correct, I say in the administration, but he was in the he was the head of the transition team.
$7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this: as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
He's showing you the pen, so you know he's really got the pen and he'll really, really do it.
It's on the minds of a lot of moms and dads and Americans, and I know that you've been thinking about it because childcare costs, they are up. They're topping
Vito
$10,000
Penn was
per
my
month.
favorite character in
Some families
Sopranos.
are spending up to half of their income on childcare, and they're having to decide: is it worth it for me to work, or does it not make sense for me financially? In 3 days, the billions of dollars in pandemic-era funding is going to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden eligibility for child care assistance. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can you tell them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Certainly one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over $15,000 per child. In the Build Back Broker plan, he called it a Build Back Better plan, it was going up to $29,000. The way we fix that problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back. When I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we actually lowered a single mother's taxes by 70% on the federal level, for dual income households by 60%. Then we went a step further. We doubled the child tax credit and made it refundable. By doing that, more parents had more resources to make the decisions how to take care of their family. The one thing we should do is let the American people keep their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
Okay, I'm going to give you 15 seconds.
What
Go
ashes?
ahead, and then we're going to the border.
Ilya
What ashes?
mischaracterized
What
part
ashes?
of my view.
Why are there ashes,
Division
Tim?
is unhelpful in our
What
country.
ashes?
The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan
Why
life,
are we
I wanna
in
say
the
these
ashes?
are good people on this stage. The real divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country.
This guy wants to ban TikTok, by the way.
But on the content of your character, and the
After being on
minority
TikTok
in the Democrat Party that has a chokehold over that party. That's the real divide. So this populist versus classical debate is artificial.
Ilya?
We need to unite this
I
country.
mean, yeah, listen. But you can't say you're free. You can't say you're all about free speech, then ban a speech platform.
I think we're going to go on.
Here we go.
We have all these questions.
Look at Bergen, he's still going.
There's a lot of time.
We're about childcare, nobody answered the question. In North Dakota, we knew that the cliff was coming. We knew that there was going to be millions of people without it, and so guess what? We planned.
Okay.
And when we passed legislation because
we will
childcare.
get you some questions, but you're going to have to let us move on.
Sir,
we're going to the border next.
Childcare.
Lisa, Pence, in my administration. Look at it. Look at everyone in the front row as well. Like, look how awkward this shit is, dude.
The idea of amnesty for those
God
who
bless
have
him.
put down roots and who have lived here, even though sometime back they may have entered illegally.
2 years later, President Reagan granted amnesty to nearly 3 million immigrants, something no Democrat or Republican president has done since. Governor Christie, as governor of a non-border state in 2010, you supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked.
When you saw the populist energy steaming off the fucking turd that was Donald Trump, you parroted his policies on immigration.
Since no one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago, we're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border. Every day.
All right, slug.
And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law. They are letting it go.
I did like the person who called him Senator Harkonnen as well. That was pretty good.
We're going to let it go.
I approve.
And we need to have a president who acts like I did as governor. Enforce the law. First and foremost. And that means what I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol to make sure that we stop the flow of fentanyl over the border, but also to make sure that we send a much different message. We want you here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will send you back across the border from which you came. And the fact is that until we set a law and order agenda in this country, not only now but in the future, we won't be able to continue this. And I'll tell you this. Donald Trump failed on this as well. He said he was going to build a wall across the whole border. He built 52 miles of wall and said Mexico would pay for it. Guess what? I think if Mexico knew that he was only going to build 52 miles, they might have paid for the 52 miles.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, Governor Haley.
Look at him. He's out. He's proud of that one.
Illegal immigrants are coming from countries
Take that,
south of the
Donald.
border.
I know you're watching,
You've
Donald.
seen the Fox News drone. It's captured the steady stream of people coming into the country on a daily basis. In fact, I believe we have a live picture of it tonight. That is happening right now, live.
Look at this. Dude.
In the last decade, the U.S. has
Look at
spent nearly
this.
55.
Fucking border cam. Fuck you, Fox News. And we've got some live footage of some immigrants now. They appear to be boarding a bus of some type, surrounded by military type figures. This is happening right now. We've got a live feed of people just trying to get a better, just trying to improve their lives.
$5 billion to address the root causes of migration. But crime, poverty, and corruption, they persist, and the number of migrants is only growing. Are we wasting our money?
Well, what happens is when Joe Biden waved the green flag, it told everybody to come. And now we've seen 6 million people cross the border. We've had more fentanyl that have killed Americans in the Iraq,
flag.
Vietnam, or Afghanistan.
I've got to say as well, like, it's doing my head in where it's like, listen, okay, there is a fentanyl problem, but it's not like, oh, I'm an immigrant and I want to go into America illegally. I'm just going to stuff my pockets full of, well, what do I need for the journey? Some water, a backpack, one of them tinfoil sheets to stay warm, and the rest of it just fentanyl, I think. I think I'll just, maybe some Nutri-Grain bars, but fentanyl, mostly fentanyl. I'm just going to pack myself with fentanyl, every orifice filled with fentanyl, my backpack with fentanyl, and I'm going to cross the border, and as soon as I get over the border, just, fentanyl. Let's all have some fentanyl. That's not what's happening. Like a lot of these people, like the drug trafficking thing is a separate issue. These people aren't tied to that shit.
Wars combined, we need to make sure that we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. So we have to secure the border. The way we do that is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. You see what's happening in Philadelphia right now. It's got to stop. We need to make sure we put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE.
The irony is the sanctuary cities have actually never really been sanctuary cities. Like, sanctuary cities, it's just a political term, sort of, get a bit of, cultural capital with a Democrat Party. When they actually do have the immigrants turn up in the cities, they, oh no, like Martha's Vineyard. Like, listen, we've got some cereal for you guys, but you have to go back now, okay? We're super glad to have met you. That's a fucking sanctuary city. I don't know what defunding them would fucking help. By the way, also, fucking Philly's a shithole. Like, don't defund, like, Philly's a fucking nightmare. I think, actually, if a lot of these people coming across the border knew what Philly was like, they'd fucking turn around. Maybe that's what you need to do. Just start showing, just have, like, documentary footage of it. Now we're in downtown Philadelphia. This is what it looks like, guys. You don't want to come? No, I fucking don't, actually. I'm all right.
Agents on the ground and let them do their job. I spent 400 miles down that border, and I'm telling you, Border Patrol agents aren't allowed to do their job. Let's go back to remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
What about
and
what about the aid that federal taxpayers are paying to deal with the root causes? It's not working?
The only aid that we should be spending right now is to secure the border, the southern border, the northern border, period.
You would cut
we
off
need
aid
to
to the
keep
region?
Americans safe. And right.
She walks that back because, obviously, remember, this is Nikki Let's Go to War Haley. So she's like very much about aid for every Israel and Ukraine and everybody else. So she doesn't really mean what she's saying here. She doesn't mean the only aid. She means all the military industrial complex money, that obviously that, and the border, which we will fix by sending in the National Guard and letting them buy a bunch of tanks or something. I don't know.
Right now, Americans are not safe. Only when we fix the immigration system, only when we get the border secure, should we ever look at putting any more money into this. Our money should be about keeping Americans safe. We're not doing that. Joe Biden's not doing that.
See, a good moderator would have just said here, but you said you support aid to Israel and Ukraine because they're the front line of defense for America. Would you cut their aid to secure the border? That's a good question. No, we're not going to do that, though. We're not going to do that.
4 times.
We're going to ding the bell. Ding, ding.
If they don't keep the government open, they should not get paid. No pay, no budget. That's the way we should handle
Governor
it.
Governor DeSantis, we have a question for you.
This news
Governor
boss.
DeSantis, China invested $12 billion in Latin America just last year. They signed strategic partnerships with 7 countries, including Mexico. And China's military ties to the region now include arms sales and training exercises.
Together, blood.
Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess is because elites in D.C. for far too long have chosen surrender over strength when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to have real hard power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions.
Like Reagan, remember Reagan?
Economic independence from China.
That's what I love about Wasteland 3, actually. That game's actually sick. They have a whole religious cult dedicated to Ronald Reagan.
Governor of Florida, I banned the
Gippers.
CCP
They're
from
fucking
buying
great.
land
Love
in
that
our
game.
state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. We shouldn't have Confucius institutes. So you see a country in decline, our power's in decline. Universities. We shouldn't have the CCP from buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. Got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to have real hard power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions. We're going to have economic independence from China, where we're decoupling our economy, and we are going to go after the cultural power they have in this country. As governor of Florida, I banned the CCP from buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. We shouldn't have Confucius institutes. So you see a country in decline, our power's in decline. China's going to surpass us this decade, and if they do that, that's going to affect every single American household. As your president, I am not going to let that happen. I'm going to reverse this country's decline. We are going to choose strength, not surrender when it comes to the CCP.
America is not a country in decline. Under Joe Biden, we are a country in retreat.
Proposed, quote, universal deportation
So
for
the
all
Confucius
undocumented immigrants
Institute
and their children, even
is
if the
a
children
19-year-old
are citizens of the United
organization
States. Under what legal
that builds
premise
public
will you
educational and
expel
cultural
US
promotion
citizens?
programs.
So the first thing I want to say is I
funded by
agree
the
with
Chinese
everything the
government
Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue.
to
Militarize
teach
the southern border,
Chinese
stop funding
internationally,
sanctuary
support
cities,
local
and
Chinese
end foreign
people,
aid to
and
Mexico
facilitate
and Central America,
cultural
to end the
exchanges.
incentives to come across.
Get rid of
but
them, I
I do
guess.
go a step further.
That
You're
well.
right about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship for the kids of
I'm sure it is a front for the Chinese
immigrants
government,
in this
of course.
country. Now, the left will
I'm sure.
howl about the
It
Constitution.
sounds nice
and
in
the 14th
theory, is
Amendment.
what I'm saying.
The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here. And as the father of 2 sons, it is
So
hard
this
for
is
me to
Vivek's
look them
big,
in the eye and say, you
like,
have to
immigration
follow the law.
policy,
When
which
our own
goes like
government
further
fails
than
to
any
follow
other
its
Republican,
own
I think, on
laws,
this topic.
that's how
And what
we
he's
really
saying
go the
is,
distance
if
and
an
solve
illegal,
this problem
if a
and restore the
pregnant
rule of
illegal
law in the
immigrant
United
gives
States of
birth
America,
to that
because that is
baby
part of what it even
on
means to be
American
an American.
soil,
Senator Scott, you oppose
ordinarily, you know, you're a citizen of where you're born, right? So that child would qualify for citizenship. He wants to not only change that, but he would send that baby back, even after the fact.
So the challenge that we face is, in fact,
I don't know,
one that has to
dude.
do with whether or not the people that come here are under the jurisdiction of our laws. And frankly, if you come here illegally, you are not. Now,
By the way, I was looking on Twitter while this was going on, because I was simultaneously watching this and scrolling through Twitter, and there was a ton of like conservatoids like going fire emoji with that like clip.
It was designed
like Vivek, send them all back, Ramaswamy. Like, what the fuck, dude?
I'll go one step further, though. When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people, and I appreciate that, because last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, you know,
he was right.
I can't imagine how you can say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
So look, here's what I want to respond. These are good people who are tainted by a broken system, and it's not the fault of anybody who's involved.
Some of us are tainted.
Excuse me.
This is when it happens. They all come in now.
You said bought and paid for.
If I may finish.
You've crossed the Rubicon, Vivek.
Gentlemen, you'll have your turn.
One of the challenges we should have a debate between Vivek.
Listen to the fucking state of this. This is what I was listening to at like 4 a.m. in bed. Like, what a fucking nightmare.
Speaking at the same time, no one can understand
Exactly. So if I may, I agree with Ron DeSantis on China. When every other CEO expanded into the Chinese market, you know what I did with my first company? We opened a subsidiary in China. But you know what I did that was different than every other company? We got the hell out of there. And when I started my next company,
after you made your money,
Strive, right when that's years ago. Right when I started my next company, Strive, to compete against BlackRock. Excuse me. To compete against BlackRock, I made a commitment that we would never do business in China. And I will say something.
I think you have more than time to explain your point.
Well, if I was interrupted by a lot of people here, and I want to be respectful because I believe these are good people, but I do not believe in these. We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes, I wish you would not.
Think of Reagan. Won't you think of the Reagan, Tim Scott?
From one admirer of Reagan to another, we cannot see.
Ma'am, did you redeem the Reagan? Did I ask you to redeem Reagan, ma'am?
Let's have a policy debate. And the right answer is we need to declare independence from China.
Thank you very much.
And I will see that through.
Vice President Pence, in 2017, the Trump-Pence administration canceled DACA, which put the legal status of 600,000
It's just unbelievable. Like, why are we thinking about,
and they pay taxes?
Like, what would Ronald Reagan do in a fucking debate about policy in a country that's so far removed from fucking what Reagan's America looked like? None of Reagan's ideas are fucking relevant.
To start voting in presidential elections. So we're nice to have you participating in elections. So let me speak to this issue. Number one, I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. We used economic power to bring the Mexican government to the table. We built hundreds of miles of border wall, and despite what's said here today, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And as President of the United States, I can do it again. And the truth is we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation. And we have to secure the southern border of the United States of America. I know how to do it, and we will do it again. Let me say one other thing about China. Let me say one other thing about China.
Would you negotiate with Congress to give a solution to the problem that Dreamers have right now? They are on a limbo.
Well, let me tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years, although it seemed longer. But you know, something
fucking
I've
felt
done
longer, mate.
different
Like this,
than
like
everybody
this
on this stage is I've actually secured reform in Congress.
You know as well, like his people were like telling him, like, try and be funnier in this one, like try and warm up to people. You have polling says you're a bit stuffy. You know, they don't like this Mormon stuff. So could you tell a few jokes, warm up?
We stood our ground. I led House conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget. It can be done, but as I said in the last debate, I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready on day one to get Congress to step up, secure the southern border of the United States, build a military fitted to our times, and we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control once and for all.
I got mentioned on the other side of this break, and I propose to go to a break. How will these candidates make America safer as rising crime plagues our cities?
Now you know this is what we need. Debate night. Crime. It's time to talk about crime. Look at this as well. The swooping cam. Do
you trust our government? And
no, you know I don't. There we go.
And welcome back to the Reagan Library for the second Republican
Nothing like Republicans
debate.
talking about
just
crime.
Remind everyone, there's 1 minute for questions, 3 seconds for a follow-up, and the more you mention each other, that means the fewer questions you're going to get. Okay, so we want to talk about crime. This has been a horrendous problem in our country. The Fox News and others have been covering it. Governor Christie, crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night, looters took over the streets of Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use
always Philly
to prosecute crimes local prosecutors won't.
It's always
they are
Philly,
stretched
dude.
as well,
It's a
and they could not
shithole.
handle
Like, what
all the
happened, man?
lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging.
City of brotherly love
Progressive
just gone,
prosecutors
dude.
were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Well, look, Dana, I'm the only one on this stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back under control. The fact is they will be stretched. There's no doubt about that, but that's what they take the job for, because they love the idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities. But we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight. Not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on this stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right.
Now, I do want to point something out here. Just in case you didn't know. Now, obviously, you'll know about Donald Duck, the famous Donald Duck. What you might not know is there's a website, right, that makes celebrity ducks, okay, for your bath. You know, like you have a rubber ducky in the bath, right? And there actually is... Right, here it is. This is the Donald Duck who wants to take Quack America, right? And on the side, it does say, make bath time great again. So, I reckon Chris Christie bought a bunch of those before he did that joke, because you could see he was setting it up. You're ducking these debates. He was really labouring the point. I went and had a look, actually, at the website. Let me show you. There was this as well. They also make this one. If you want to keep it political, you made it political. They did a Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which you can get there as well. So just in case you thought American politics isn't. Oh my fucking god! What a nightmare. Anyway, we'll get back to it. Well, good. Look. Oh, by the way, the perfect pause. Look at his smirk as well, like fucking Anton Chigurh when he says, "Because it's just a coin," which it is. He's done that face out of fucking nowhere. Like, what's happened there? Like,
I want to ask Governor DeSantis. You fired a couple of prosecutors in your state, but as
look at that. Someone in the crowd thought that was straight fire. It was like, whoa! Oh shit! Donald Duck!
Root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals. They just get out and come back and commit another crime.
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful as a
Tell
country.
us about your record in Florida, Ron. What did you do in Florida, Ron?
Places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Just being in Southern California over the last couple of days, my wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street. And that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago. In Florida, we back the blue. We support the men and women of law enforcement. They are keeping us safe. We have a 50-year low in the crime rate. And yes, when I had 2 progressive prosecutors that weren't following the law in Florida, I removed them from their posts, and the people of Florida are safer as a result of it. As president, I will use the Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors. We're not going to let them get away with it anymore. We want to reverse this country's decline. We need to choose law and order over rioting and disorder.
And the smile, he did the smile again. Anyway, when I think of places where there's like no crime, I think of Florida, you know. I think of fucking Miami, Florida, you know what I mean? Nothing happening down there, dude. It's fine. I mean, to be fair, I think it was in the state they had like some sort of like, I don't know, 15, 18% crime drop overall, but that didn't count Miami. Like in Miami, I thought crime rates were slightly up, but whatever, dude. It's fine. But you want to see the smile again? Okay, there it is. He still never quite perfected it. He still never quite perfected the old smile, really. It's like, you know, it's like, I don't know. It's like when people are coming back from a stroke and they're getting some use of their facial muscles back, but they're still off. They're still a bit melty. You know, it's still a bit melty face. But he just never quite got there. But, you know, it's fine. You know. It's only American politics. Who needs to be able to smile?
On a related subject, Governor Haley, there's a nationwide policing shortage. Retirements are up, recruitment is in the tank, morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge.
We're not going to qualify any of those statements. Any numbers?
Pledges are a nice idea, but what's your
numbers, Mason?
Plan to get more police on our streets?
Well, and I actually did it in South Carolina, too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words. It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a lot of stolen guns on the street. Well, these law enforcement officers, they arrest these people, and then they go and they're let out the very next day. So law enforcement feels like no one has their back. We have to start prosecuting according to the law. We have to make sure we have the backs of law enforcement, and we have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to China because I don't think we spent enough time on that.
I wish you'd
right
go back
now,
to China.
We have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China, too. You have a company, U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that. Yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking foreign policy later. Delia?
Yes, thank you, Stuart. We're going to stay in the topic of crime because it affects all of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun violence is. What is your specific plan to curb gun violence?
Well, first we need to know, to understand, is I think that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution they have to this is take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about, that you showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So we know that that's not what's working. What we have to do is get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws these people talked about, and like we've done in North Dakota, where we've got the goal and we're on the track to be the most military-friendly state in the nation. We've got the most military and the most support of what we're doing in terms of law enforcement, because the morale is down because we've been defunding the police, because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them?
I mean, you want... oh Lord, here it comes. I do want to just say that probably what hasn't helped the perception around the police being the bad guys is all the police that turned out to be bad guys. Now, I get it's a fucking difficult problem. You know, you pay a trained police officer less than a fucking McDonald's clerk. You're not going to attract the brightest and best. And then when you have a need to get them on the streets as quickly as possible, so the average training program is somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks of basic before they're on foot patrol, you are going to have a lot of fucking problems. I never got on board with the defund the police idea because that doesn't fix the problem of morons joining the police force and then abusing the power and doing terrible things to people with what they believe is impunity. But equally, this idea of what we should do is fucking lionize the... No. Police are legitimately the bad guys in lots of fucking many such cases, you might say. And turning a blind eye to that, you know, we got to get rid of qualified immunity. I mean, that's like the first fucking thing. You know, if a police officer can be held liable for the heinous fucking shit that they do, I think that's gonna curb some of the corruption and some of the other stuff. The police unions have way too much, a disproportionate amount of influence, and the way they protect provably, measurably, knowingly corrupt members of the union. You know, that's one union I wouldn't have too much of an issue of having their like power and influence reduced. But I think you start with the qualified immunity thing. You start with longer training before people get on the streets. I think as well you make a concerted effort to have a policy of, unless there is an immediate risk of harm to the general public, you need to wait until a trained, qualified mental health professional officer gets there, someone with the requisite training. You know, like in special forces, special forces, you get your badges. You know, like when you're in the Marines, you go and you do your Arctic training, you do your parachute training, you do your, you know, you go through and you build up your skill set almost like modularly. We need to kind of have that approach to police officers as well. And yeah, you could train all police officers to have it, but I think not every officer in America is going to be suited to that type of work. There has to be an empathy and a sensitivity and an educational understanding of the mechanics of the psychology. And I think, you know, there's ways to fix the broken police system in America. But more warm bodies isn't it. That's not how you fix it, because the police in America has a quality problem. And I get that, yeah. You know, people join the police force as like a last resort. A lot of people who leave the military end up in the police force because they can't get any other job. And then you have military-style tactics playing out in non-war zone citizen interactions, usually with someone who's ravaged with fucking PTSD. So, you know, there's plenty of ways to fix the police. Less money, isn't it? And more warm bodies, isn't it? And lionizing them and saying they're heroes, isn't it either?
Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Hey, your fucking neck, he's kneeling on the, is it, pal?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly...
Do you see that? You see that statistic? You see how she just said that when they're stopping fentanyl at the border, 57% of the people smuggling it are U.S. citizens. But every time every other candidate has talked about fentanyl, they're talking about how it's tied to illegal immigration. This is what I'm saying. I knew it was bullshit. I'd totally forgotten that statistic was there. It's not the illegal immigrants bringing it in. It's U.S. citizens with ties to drug cartels or people that are fucking dealing drugs themselves. You know, or, by the way, people bulk buying fake fucking pills. That's the other thing. People don't even know it's fucking fentanyl. They're like, listen, I'm going to get 500 perks. You know, Kurt Angle, right? Fucking, daddy needs his medicine, right? So you fucking go and you buy 500 fucking perks, and then they ain't perks. They're fucking, they're cut with fentanyl, and you distribute them and people die, you know? That's what's going on. It's so crazy, like.
By U.S. citizens through ports of entry.
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks can drive through them. We have to use our military to seal
they are
the
building
Swiss
tunnels,
cheese of
but
a
I don't know about
southern border.
semi-trucks.
But we also have to be honest. There's a demand-side problem in this country, too.
Is that true?
A mental health
Someone
epidemic.
pull that up,
I met
Jamie.
family
Google
in
that
Iowa.
one.
Two parents, Kathy and Derek. They lost their son, Sebastian, 17 years old. He bought Percocet on Snapchat, and then he died. Why did he die? Because it was laced with fentanyl. That is closer to bioterrorism, not a drug overdose. That is poisoning. So it is our job to make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country, not with pump-in pharmaceuticals, but with faith-based approaches that restore purpose and meaning in the next generation of Americans. Many of them are getting it through social media. And this isn't a Republican point or a Democrat point, but if you're 16 years old or under, you should not be using an addictive social media product, period.
Now listen, I want the Zoomers and the teens off social media because they just talk shit. And I should never, as a grown man who's 39, I should never have to read the opinion of a teenager. I don't give a fuck. Your opinions are shit. You don't know anything about the world. You're a moron. You're meant to be a moron. It's okay, like. So I'm all right with that. Like, but trying to tie it to the Fed, like, and little Timmy went on Snapchat. By the way, I love when they use like names and give these examples. None of these politicians have met any of the people they talk about. Ron DeSantis didn't meet 3 people who've been mugged in California. They're not like us. They're not out there talking to people. It's nonsense. So anyway, but yeah, little Timmy went on Snapchat and bought some fucking perks, and we shouldn't have done that, and it's sad, and Percocet's bad, and if we just didn't have Snapchat, that would never have happened. Like, well, already, by the way, you said 16 would be the cutoff, and he was 17, so it doesn't even fix the made-up example you used. But yeah, I think, like, I won't go down that road. I won't go down the drug policy argument. I think my opinions on drug policy are particularly well known at this point.
And we can revive both the mental health of this country while stopping the fentanyl epidemic that will kill more people this year than who died on 9/11. And I refuse to be a passive bystander sitting in the White House like the hollowed out husk of a current president.
Please, won't you think of Ronald Reagan? Please redeem the Reagan. Think of 9/11. Oh my God. Holy shit, Vivek.
Everything he said, I agree with. That is why, as Commander-in-Chief, I'm going to use the U.S. military to go after the Mexican drug cartels. They are killing our people. And the stories that I've seen in Florida, we had an...
By the way, I don't want to bore you with the history of it, but, someone... I have, like, a Colombian friend. When American military and drug cartel paramilitary were going at it, it wasn't good for people at all. It was a very dangerous time. And so saying he's going to send the military to go fight the fucking cartels when, like, there are cartels like Los Zetas who were fucking originally they were the Mexican military. They've got all the Mexican military hardware. I don't know, Chief. Like, that feels like... And by the way, the cartels just don't fuck around. Like, they do not fuck around at all. If you want to send military down there, you're going to, like, I know. They behead journalists, judges, politicians. They fucking murked a YouTuber for joking he was in the fucking cartel. Like, I don't know, blood. I think that's maybe not the policy. Maybe there's a better policy than just bring guns. But what do I know? I'm just...
In 18 months,
just
parents rented an Airbnb. And apparently the people that had rented it before were using drugs. The infant was crawling, the toddler was crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died.
Wow, a baby
Are we
died.
just going to sit here and let this happen? This
A
carnage
generic
happen in our
baby
country? I am
in
not
an
going
example
to do
that totally
So
happened,
I guarantee
and then
you on
everybody
day one,
cried.
This border is going to be a day one issue for me as president. We're going to declare it a national emergency. Yes, we'll build the wall. We'll do remain in Mexico, but those Mexican drug cartels are going to be treated like the foreign terrorist organizations that they are.
President Pence. All right, Vice President Pence.
To be fair to the Reaper's obviously an American dude because he just said behead this Tomahawk missile.
You said if elected,
Fair enough,
you would
Blood,
repeal
actually.
all
I like your
Obamacare
style.
mandates.
Whatever.
However, you also made
Send
that
the
same
missiles
promise
in.
in
Deploy the
2016.
Tomahawks.
And at that time, Trump Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years, and you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare, right now, it is more popular than ever. Why should Americans trust you, if you become president, to fix that, or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first, let me speak to the mass shootings issue, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dana. Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as the grandfather of three beautiful little girls, I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United States...
Right, now get this, right? He's sick and tired of mass shootings happening in America because I love my grandkids. All right, Mike. Okay, all right. I'm feeling this energy. Are you going to say something that breaks away from Republican orthodoxy here? Let's see. What is the solution to the mass shootings, Mr. Pence?
States. I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass shooting so that they will meet their fate in months, not years. It is unconscionable that the Parkland shooter, Ron, is actually going to spend the rest of his life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice.
So, he thinks the death penalty, which they already have, will deter more mass shootings in America if they expedite it. Listen, mass shooter, do you know if you pull that trigger, you won't just get the death penalty, you'll get the double secret turbo death penalty. Like, that's fucking... Half of these cunts turn the gun on themselves at the end. Like, it's just not a deterrent, Mike, for fuck's sake. And he only threw that in. He only put that in there because he wanted to dunk on Ron DeSantis because the Parkland shooter didn't get the death penalty because the fucking... the prosecutor took it off the fucking table. Well, you know, what the fuck? What a dumb fucking thing to say.
We have to mete out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars. You're going to meet justice in this system.
But does that mean Obamacare is here to stay?
Fair enough. Got him there. Got him.
Well, thank you for reiterating the question, because I'd love to answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States, it's my intention to make the federal government smaller by returning to the states those resources and programs that are rightfully theirs under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. That means all Obamacare funding, all housing funding, all HHS funding, all of it goes back to the states. We'll shut down the Federal Department of Education. Will allow states to innovate. We're going to revive federalism in America, and states are going to help bring America back.
Stu, go ahead.
May I remind everyone to keep within their time frame so that we can get as many questions in as possible. This question for Governor DeSantis. Over 26 million Americans don't have insurance coverage. Governor DeSantis, 2.5 million of them are in your state. That's worse than the national average. Can Americans trust you on this?
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates are going through the roof. People that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take things out of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line because the total goes up so quickly. So this is very real, and people...
Just a point of reference, she could also not put them in there. It feels decidedly more efficient. It doesn't matter, she's not real. She's not real. She's not doing that because she doesn't exist.
Are hurting out there, so we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all Biden's rules and regulations. I'm going to throw them in the trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up.
Surprised he didn't pull out a trash can like the veto
pen. Country that will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with healthcare is recognize our healthcare is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and
don't know about that term, but fine. Okay, well, I guess we'll just push through.
Big government, and we need to tackle that and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
Governor, why is your
could have just said back of the queue. Oh, you didn't know, did you, run?
Our state's a dynamic state. We've got a lot of folks that come. Of course, we've had a population boom. We also don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. You know, we're basically say we want to. This is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that, and so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment rate is the lowest amongst any big state. We have the highest GDP growth amongst any big state, and even CNBC, no fan of mine, ranked Florida the #1 economy in America.
Smile again. The smiler. We are in Transmetropolitan, aren't we?
Healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy for American families, accounting for 2/3 of all personal bankruptcies. As president, how you protect Americans who get sick from financial ruin?
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world? We have an issue. My mom was in the hospital, and when she was in the hospital, they tried to bring her a couple of Tylenol, and she said, I don't need it. And they said, honey, go ahead and take it because you're paying for it anyway. Why is it that when we got the
that Tylenol's name? Albert Einstein.
Bill, the insurance company and the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it. When I am president, we will break all of it, from the insurance company to the hospitals to the doctor's offices to the PBMs to the pharmaceutical companies. We will make it all transparent, because when you do that, you will realize that's what the problem is. Second thing is you've got to deal with tort law. The doctors don't give you the 10 tests because they want to. It's because of the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we need to bring competition back to health care, get rid of certificate of need systems, and make sure that they can compete. We have to put the patient in the driver's seat. They've been in the back seat for way too long. And once we give the patient the ability to decide their health care,
is that seat on a bus, Nikki, or is that just Ron's
that is when we will see magic happen. But we're going to have to make every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the American people.
And that's what we did.
Do you have a better way in 30 seconds?
Well, yes, we're not talking about the real problem ever. We talk about why do we have the most expensive health care in the world? It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everybody more productive.
Everybody knows the American healthcare system was fucking peaches and cream before 2008. They're notorious for that.
The only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive, they saw less patients per day, is U.S. healthcare, because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology. It wasn't about improving healthcare. It was about picking winners and losers. Every time the federal government's involved, whether it's higher education, healthcare, or now the auto industry, things get more expensive and less competitive.
That was a great transition, because we are going to move on the future of education in America. What's the government's role in finding a way forward? The second Republican debate rolls on from Simi Valley.
I'm 5 years.
Is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world?
God bless him. God bless him. Finished this
Do you
term
trust
without
our government?
I told you.
Sign up and commit to voting early.
That's how.
What's this? Bank your vote. The Republicans are doing it. They figured out how to ballot harvest. They figured out about early mail-in votes. Holy shit.
Page 94.
They actually learned the lesson from 2020.
Okay. Can't wait. Honestly, YouTube, this is too much to read. when Republicans vote early, we win.
You can bank your vote by casting your ballot before Election Day.
We don't need to wait until the last quarter to put points on the board. Go to bankyourvote.com to sign up and commit to voting early.
That's how we're going to beat the Democrats.
I wonder how many takes Trump did. I mean, it was just him going, they stole that election, you know. They really did. They really did.
Democrats at their own game.
Go to bankyourvote.com.
And please take the pledge to bank your vote to beat Biden.
Yes. Welcome to the fucking you boomers. You're getting there.
Over 10.
Literacy.
Great.
So that
literacy. Oh, don't ask Nikki Haley about education.
And we are back live at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the
We're going to get everybody reading, and that's going to fix everything in America.
Questions, Governor Haley. American students, they are in academic trouble. They have lower scores in math and reading. There's chronic absenteeism. That's at record highs. And this has even been...
Yeah, that's a good point, by the way. John Teeth in the chat. Yeah, it's like... mail-in ballots are wrong. We want to get rid of mail-in ballots. You can't have free and fair elections if you have mail-in ballots. By the way, for me, listen, I've said it many times. I think when you vote, you should have to go into a room with your polling card and your ID, and you should show your ID, put the X in the box behind a curtain, drop it in a box, a physical paper, and fuck off. That's how voting should be. That's my opinion. Not everyone's. But for fuck's sake, they're now doing an advertising campaign. Get your mail-in ballots. You can beat Biden. We will send people to your house to pick up your votes, put them in a box. We'll get everyone's votes. It's like, yeah, that's what the Democrats have been doing for ages. Why they fucking smoke you all the time.
Called education homicide. You say school choice is the answer, but South Carolina, your home state, still has not enacted universal school choice, and even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until 2027. Parents can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would you do right now?
Well, and school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all, is we have to acknowledge the fact that 67% of our 8th graders are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our 8th graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. We need to do reading remediation. We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need to make sure that we have school choice so that there's competition. We need to move all the programs from the federal government down to the states and let states decide what education looks like in their states. Right. And we need to start building things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back in our high schools, and let's get our kids building the things that we know that we can make. When we start to focus on that and really bring in that parental involvement, that's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT and instead focus on financial literacy, on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of education, a question for Governor Christie. Students in your state are getting high marks on their report cards, but minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart, frankly, before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school district in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency.
It's now the second worst.
It can be done when you give people choice. But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country. Randy Weingarten and her crew are absolutely strangling. They are taking the worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids. And when you have the President of the United States sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance that you could take the stranglehold away from the teachers union every day. They have an advocate inside
this
the White
sets
House
up the
every day
Pence joke.
for the
Now
worst
you know.
of their teachers,
Now you know
not
it's
for
coming.
our
I told
students
you.
to be the best they can be. A President of the United States has to take on the teachers union. I did it in New Jersey, and I will do it as President of the United States.
Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you. Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you.
Are you guys having trouble seeing me?
Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt.
This was ridiculous. I almost wanted to fucking do a bit about it, but I just thought, fuck it. It's just one of those where everyone's just going to catch feelings and get upset. But basically, there was this whole brouhaha in the media about how apparently Ron DeSantis had argued that, like, actually, slavery was good for some people because they learned transferable skills that they wouldn't have ordinarily learned. He didn't say that. What had actually happened was a curriculum that they had in Florida, which was written by black academics, contained a part of it that talked about post-slavery life for black Americans and how many of them were able to create businesses or value within communities because of things they had acquired during the time of slavery. That's what was said explicitly in the literature that was written by black academics. Fucking Kamala Harris blew this up because it was like a cheap way to attack DeSantis. There was like a week-long like news cycle about it. At no time did Ron DeSantis say slavery was good. I mean, like, it was profoundly fucking stupid. But of course, you know, the media at the moment, they don't know whether to shit or get off the pot with DeSantis. It's like they have to keep one eye on him because there's a chance he's going to get the nomination, even though he's still massively behind Trump right now. But as I said, it's not popularity that's going to dictate whether or not Trump's the nominee. It's all the indictments and all the other bullshit they're jamming him up with. So, and also the media need Trump to run. So the media is Trump, 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 Trumpity Trump, 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 Trump. But this was too free. This was too free because obviously optically it sounded terrible when they framed it in the way that wasn't explicitly stated. So
For the sentence of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great black history scholars, so we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in our schools in a really big way, just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
Senator Scott, you oppose to these new standards. What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment,
that
in
is
crime,
true.
and devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. I met two young women early in this campaign.
Specifically on parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation here. The very people who say that this increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry.
I will say on the issue of teachers keeping things secret from parents, I don't like it.
I met two young women.
I think loco parenti really needs to get back to having some sort of limits.
Getting double mastectomies.
You're a teacher.
One of them will never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen in this country is barbaric. So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical castration under the age of 18, and parents have absolutely the right.
Would you try to pass a federal law that says parents should have that right?
We are going to require states absolutely have to follow that through.
Governor Burgum
we
just
stand
to follow
for
up on
parental
this
rights.
because
Yes.
you in your state you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified, but you want to be president. Would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something, because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or health care or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on the
That's
stage.
what we need, another business leader. Wasn't that Trump's
So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is the student.
But you do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education. That needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape, and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like Boy Scouts, they can get credit for all of that stuff in North Dakota. And by the way, North Dakota is now at the top of the median SAT scores in the country right now.
Woo, Dakota!
Yeah. The Department of Homeland Security warns that violence against LGBTQ+ people is on the rise and intensifying. According to a recent study, members of that community are 9 times more likely to be victims of violent hate crimes.
They ask Pence this fucking question. I think we all know that Mike Pray the Gay Away Pence has his views, right? Like,
As president, how would you protect this community from violent attacks and discrimination?
Well, as President of the United States, I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American from every background. And I want the American people to know that. But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked Doug Burgum. Because by way of full disclosure, Chris, you mentioned the president's situation. My wife isn't a member of the teachers union, but I got to admit I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years. And full disclosure. Look.
It fucking hurts me so much inside. Why? Dude, why? Right, okay, Mike, you got to be more relatable, okay? Swerve that gay question by saying you're fucking super straight. You fucking weirdo cunt. He couldn't even handle a question. Like, would you stop gay people, like, being beaten up? Would you, like, publicly pledge to protect their safety? And then he's gone, I'd do it for all Americans, me. And just in case you didn't know, I've been fucking this woman for 38 years, unrelated, right? But anyway, into the real questions. Like, holy shit, dude. It's so fucking wild. It's like a comedy sketch, dude. Literally Mike's super straight pants.
Look, education is a state and local function. The state of Indiana had one of the very first school choice programs in the country. And when I was governor of the state of Indiana, we doubled it. And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear.
I sleep with women.
The Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents. I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy.
That probably
That's
isn't
crazy.
real, is it?
We're going to stand up for the rights of
That
parents.
doesn't sound real at all.
Pass
All
a
right,
federal
Mike.
ban on transgender chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology agenda, and we've got to empower parents at the state level with the ability to choose where their kids go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or homeschool. You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values and focus on the basics faster than you could possibly imagine.
Next subjects.
He just doesn't generate any enthusiasm, Mike Pence. It's actually, these debates have been disastrous. He's done.
Lose time.
I mean, he always
China
was.
is investing heavily
He's
in
nowhere.
their tech companies. $280 billion.
Oh shit, he said straighten up as well. I didn't even catch it. Oh my god.
That is
oh my god, he really did he really
Governor
do that?
DeSantis.
You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values and focus on the basics faster than you could possibly imagine.
Oh, he did it as well, Mike.
Can I just say one thing?
Dirty dog. You super straight dirty dog, dude.
Please lose time. China is investing heavily in their tech companies.
China, dude.
$280 billion.
Isn't it wild? I want to say like 1/3 of this debate has actually been about Chinese economics and Chinese policy. Like for fuck's sake, dude. Like, just do one question.
Every year on semiconductor research and development. That is 1 CHIPS Act per year. Governor DeSantis, you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our societies develop. They have huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies.
But enough about the
this issue of
Democrats.
China, I think, is
Am I
really
right?
going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much of our national needs to the CCP. We rely on them for a whole host of issues. We need to reshore and we need to decouple all those important industries. We need to get that back in the United States. They are our top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the Asia Pacific, but as you mentioned earlier, in our region. But ultimately, we've got to beat him on the economy. And so that's what we'll do as President of the United States.
Governor Christie, I wanted to follow up on this because
No?
22% of American workers fear their jobs will be lost to a robot. And you said in the past that the free market is the way to go. Would you retrain workers who lose a job to artificial intelligence, and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers us is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have now, and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana. You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and progress in this country. What we've done with it is to expand all kinds of new, even unthought of opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that. And we should have more training available both at the county college level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that. But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years, a technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, and a freedom and governmental innovator. And that's why America has to continue to stand strong in the world, pro-innovation, pro-progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do...
Is there, like, actually anyone who's like, well, actually, Chris, I disagree. I'm anti-progress, anti-innovation, actually. Yeah, like, for fuck's sake. We must be pro-progress. Okay, yeah, good.
Is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government the hell off its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everybody's lives better.
Mr. Ramaswamy, TikTok is banned on government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government. Yet you joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded by an influencer?
So the answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans where they are. So
Now, he did do that, right? In case you're wondering, he did do that. He did go, and it was awful. In fact, should I? Just in case you missed it, right? Because, you know, I know not everyone follows this stuff with the sickness like I do. But this has to be there. It's a matter of record. How come more politicians don't connect with the younger generation with social media posts? Look how fucking... the pair of them look... Just miserable, isn't it? What a nightmare. Was that way too loud? It probably was. So basically, Vivek's big plan is he wants to get on TikTok, talk to all the big TikTok influencers, get elected, then ban TikTok. It's so dumb. It's like, I don't know, actually, that's kind of based. Like, go out there to the Zoomers, like, vote for me. And they go, oh, wow, he's on TikTok. He's based, not cringe. He's goated, for real, and then he just bans TikTok. Like, so I don't know, it's kind of amazing, actually.
When I get into office, I've been very clear. Kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media. We're only going to ever get to declaring independence from China, which I favor, if we actually win. So while the Democrats are running rampant...
Wait, declare independence from China? What? I'm pretty sure America doesn't need to declare independence from China. Like, pretty sure you are independent. I mean, yeah, like, you might not be economically independent, but you're not like you're not like Taiwan or Tibet or something. Insane. When will America declare independence?
The next generation 3-1. There's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here, and so I know I have to earn your trust. What do you see? You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a know-it-all, it seems at times. I'm here to tell you, no, I don't know it all. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age they are, advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people who disagree with me. That's what makes America great, because we're not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump. I have to jump in here. I'm sorry.
There's
one person on this.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say, because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
Not like the fucking American government that were doing that shit in the Bush years.
You've gone and you've helped China build
not like the NSA.
China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on this social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok in our kids' lives. We need to ban it.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds.
I think, excuse me.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy following Reagan's 11th Commandment in his honor. And the answer is that is what actually makes our country strong. And I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage. They disagree, but let's have a legitimate disagreement. That's what I would say.
Again,
Stuart,
it's Reagan.
get back to the question. The question is on technology.
Governor DeSantis,
on this stage
Sir,
that has a
we will have to cut your mic, and I don't want to do that. I don't. So, Governor DeSantis, let me go to you. Experts say President Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe, cheated on arms control treaties with the U.S., and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if you want to prevent a war, you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine. The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russia's military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
It's in our interest to end this war, and that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have U.S. troops, and we're going to make the Europeans do what they need to do. But they've sent money to pay bureaucrats' pensions and salaries and funding small businesses halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even have control of our own territory. We have got to defend the American people before we even worry about all these other things. And I watch these guys in Washington, D.C., and they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will defend this country's sovereignty.
But it's not a territorial dispute. It's never been a territorial dispute.
And 90% of the resources that we send over to Ukraine is guaranteed as a loan. It is not at 90% of the money that we send over there.
Yeah, it's totally coming back to him.
At the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually in the form of a loan. It's not actually not paid by Ukraine. It's paid by the NATO, our NATO allies.
So I think it's a good topic.
I think it's a really good topic too. But I will say, let's debate the fact that our national vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer.
Dude, I saw that video of them two guys getting blown up by a drone. That degraded the Russian military.
I thought you said something about waiting until your turn to talk. So hold on.
They were just praying, though.
I'm going to finish I'll be happy to debate this. I'll respond. I'll look forward to this one right now. So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that if you want to keep American troops at home, attack on NATO territory would bring us
those
and
4chan threads were fucking hilarious.
By degrading the Russian military, we reduce, if not eliminate.
He was just doing his ablutions.
NATO territory.
A Russian officer would never.
We have to level with the American people on this issue. The reality is just because Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
A win
that has
for Russia is a
that
win
is not
for
true.
China.
We're driving
a win
Russia.
For Russia is a win for China.
Excuse me, Nick. You'll have
but
a chance.
I forgot you like China. That's why
you'll have your chance in just a moment. Yeah. The hurling personal insults isn't helping. China is the real enemy, and we're driving Russia further into China's arms. We need a reasonable peace plan to end this, especially this is a country whose president just last week
Vivek,
was
if you
hailing
let
a Nazi
Putin have Ukraine, that's a green light to China to take Taiwan.
We need a
peace comes through strength.
We need a reasonable plan to peace.
Governor Christie.
The Communist Party of China is the real enemy.
Governor Christie. President Biden's first 2 years have brought China, Russia, and Iran closer together. Are we focused too much on Ukraine and not enough on this threat from the New World Order?
No, they're all connected, Stuart. They're all connected. The Chinese are paying for the Russian war in Ukraine. The Iranians are supplying more sophisticated weapons, and so are the North Koreans now as well, with the encouragement of the Chinese. The naivete on this stage from some of these folks is extraordinary. Look, I understand people want to go and talk to Putin. Guess what? So did George W. Bush. So did Barack Obama. So did Donald Trump. And so did Joe Biden when he said a small invasion wouldn't be so bad. Every one of them has been wrong. And the fact of the matter is, we need to say right now
although,
that
you know,
the Chinese
maybe it
Russian
did.
alliance is something we have to fight against, and we are not going to solve it by going over and cuddling up to Vladimir Putin. Look, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was brilliant and a great leader. This is the person who is murdering people in his own country, and now not having enough blood, he's now going to Ukraine to murder innocent civilians and kidnap 20,000 children. And let me tell you, if you think that's where it's going to stop, if we give him any of Ukraine, next will be Poland. This is a guy who said, this is a guy in 1991 who said that was the darkest moment in world history when the Soviet Union fell. Listen, everybody, he wants to put the old band back together, and only America can stop it. And when I'm president, we will.
Governor Burgum, I want to get to Governor Burgum. He hasn't had a chance. I have a question I think you're going to really like, or at least you have experience in it. And we need to talk about America's farmers, because there is a foreign policy connection here. The U.S. and China are in this fierce economic competition. It's hurting American businesses, and there is blowback against American farmers because China then targets them in retaliation. How would you, as president, protect American farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America.
Of course you do.
If they
They're
have
American,
a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in an economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price on anyone's head who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America, for kidnapping. If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then they're also helping Iran get to have more closer to nuclear weapons, which pushes all of the Middle East closer to China and Russia. The whole thing is absurd.
It's still not great.
And then, of course, we're going to give Ukraine to Russia, and then we're going to give Taiwan to China, and think that's a foreign policy. That will make our nation less successful, make us more poor. And at the core of all that is energy policy, because China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest importer in the world, and we've had 4 cabinet members from the Biden administration there this summer, and none of them talked about U.S. energy. The first one to go to each of those countries was Kerry, to talk about the folly of the climate policy, which is making the world less stable. It's empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need worried about. It's about the Biden climate policies that are actually the existential threat to America's future.
Thank you.
Can I speak
and the phone.
Mexico's president called who supports sending U.S. military into the country, quote, scoundrels. Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner and border security. You say you will send special operations to attack the cartels in Mexico. So, this means boots on the ground, drone strikes?
Yeah.
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to do is understand
let's
that
get some
Mexico's
American military in Mexico.
If we lost
That'll
75,000 Americans last year.
That can't
Mexico's
go
not
wrong.
being a good partner if
That's
they're
not
letting the
gonna cause
cartels
any
get away
problems.
with what they're getting away with. What we will do is we will make sure that we send in our special operations, and we will take out the cartels, we'll take out their operations, we'll take out anything that's doing it. But we're going to go after China, because China is the one sending the fentanyl in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl. And then we'll do the special operations, and we'll get it from both sides. This is where President Trump went wrong. He focused on trade with China. He didn't focus on the fact that they were buying up our farmland. He didn't focus on the fact that they were killing Americans. He didn't focus on the fact that they were stealing $600 billion in intellectual property. He didn't focus on the fact that they put a spy base off our shores
These
in
motherfuckers
Cuba.
are so horny for another fucking
all of our law enforcement
Cold
drones
War.
in America are Chinese.
I guess
and
we're
we've got
already
all
in
these
one.
little surveillance cells. We need to start focusing on what keeps Americans safe. That hasn't happened in a long time. As your president, I will make sure every American is safe, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
All right. I want to get to Senator Scott. You're all auditioning for the job as President of the United States. You want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debates in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush was asked about al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
Well, one of the things I've had the good fortune of doing is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl.
I get it, though. It's a good metaphor, you see. It's just you said it in a shit way. But it's like, the further we get away from that attack, and we all remember it's like so jarring and horrible, we're getting again to a day before another attack. That's what you mean. It's just stupid. It's a stupid way of phrasing it. He's trying to be way too poetic.
I've also understood without question the fact that if you look at the details before 9/11, there was information and intelligence that was available that suggested an attack was coming.
There was,
Having the right intelligence
it's great that
partners with us.
By the way, if you said that at the time, you were a fucking truther, Tim.
From ever happening. Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting the job done.
30 seconds to you.
If you said
Mr.
Bush had fucked up, you were a truther.
Well, I think you asked a question about executive experience, and I think it's vitally important. And I stand before you today as a candidate for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble.
It surely
you hear
is.
the fire on the stage tonight.
From
You
the
hear
politicians.
Fire in all of our voices. And it's because Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and a commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies, supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward.
Understood.
Because, frankly, our party does.
Actually, Ronald Reagan did enter into a lot of fucking diplomacy and was blessed in the sense that, as the Cold War sort of came to a close, there was an appetite in Russia to kind of get out of it because they'd taken so many licks, so many defeats on the world stage. We'd sort of seen the real-time failure of the Soviet Union and by extension the communist ideology that they employed, because real communism's never been tried. And they wanted for the first time in like a long time, to have somebody come and be like, you know what? Fucking, basically they got the perfect replacement after Brezhnev, essentially. Brezhnev, for those who don't remember, and again, this isn't like super fresh in the mind, because I didn't think I'd be talking about Brezhnev, so apologies. But he basically fucking stroked out and sort of died in office. And he was an old school hardliner. I think Brezhnev was KGB. And anyway, that was sort of what was happening. And then when Ronald Reagan started ramping up the speeches about tensions, Brezhnev died. Had a stroke and then was greatly diminished. His party was, the Russian state was sort of paralyzed, essentially. They couldn't do anything, and then he sort of died in office. He was chief KGB, is that right? Yeah. So Brezhnev was not a diplomat, but then obviously in the post-Brezhnev landscape, we were just fortunate, globally speaking, that we ended up getting the likes of Gorbachev in, and Gorbachev was more interested in being reciprocal with the West because there've been so many fucking problems. So, at the end of the day, Reagan was doing the whole American thing and beating his chest. He fucking had to, but Brezhnev wasn't going to fucking play around. But as soon as the opportunity for diplomacy with Russia opened up, which is what you have to pray for in a post-Putin landscape, Reagan was quick to take that and actually had, America had a great relationship with Gorbachev. It was almost unprecedented. So my impression now, unfortunately, is that if Putin were to die, if the reports about him having an aggressive cancer or a neurological condition were true, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in and around Putin's cabinet that would actually be arguably worse. That's problem number one. And then problem number two, if you got an amenable Russian leader in, then the problem now is Americans don't seem to be reciprocal. That Medvedev guy, for example, so, they don't seem to be reciprocal to the idea anymore. Russia is, we've regressed to where, we were when I was a kid, which is the Russians are, evil across the board. There's no bargaining with them. There's no, you can't rationalize. They're going to do what they want. And realistically, this is because they allowed a backslide where Putin just sort of always kept himself in a position of power and authority. I mean, essentially, it really should have been as simple as, Putin is the bad guy, and let's wait and see what happens. That's kind of the relationship that we had with other Russian leaders. Like, we can do the Cold War, we keep it frosty, but then when a good one comes along and wants to fucking get the benefits of capitalism and have a McDonald's open in Moscow, all right then, we can fuck with you all again. But I kind of feel like we're never going to enter that world again, no matter what happens in Russia, Medvedev is a lunatic who will shoot himself if Putin dies. I don't know, man. Maybe. I think everyone wants a shot at the big chair in Russia. It's the final destination for a lot of these corrupt fucks.
Of populism unmoored to conservative principles. I'm the most experienced, most qualified, and most consistent conservative in this field, and I'm ready
but I mean, he was there with Putin tickling him from fucking, like everyone else has been.
Decades. Can any of these candidates do the same? We'll take that up when the debate continues.
When the debate, because that's what we're having, a debate continues.
Do you trust our government?
No. Democracy.
Welcome back to the Republican primary debate here at the Reagan Library. We've got a lot more issues to cover and a lot more questions to go. So let's dive right back in. We're here in California, where gas is nearing $6 a gallon. Oil is close to $100 a barrel again. You say, drill, baby, drill. But the courts won't let you. Mr. Ramaswamy, how would you bring down prices without immediate drilling?
Well, look, I think that we do have to run through the courts and get through that administrative state to make sure we're using the natural resources here at home. But here's the other thing that we can do that's easy.
It would take forever, Mr. Ramaswamy.
And it addresses the national debt as well as brings down prices. Put people back to work. We are using taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home than to go to work. That is wrong. That contributes
that's going to fix the oil problem. That's going to fix the oil prices. Let's have people commuting, driving, and using more of the oil we've got
back in its place. This is an agency that has gone rogue. So in
just
January
start working, guys. You just
when I
get
have the
drilling
opportunity as
yourselves.
your next commander-in-chief, we will have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who places priority on dollar stability and then, most importantly, send packing 75% of the administrative state, reduce the federal employee headcount by 75%, rescind 50% of unconstitutional federal regulations that are shackling businesses, both large and small. I've offered a very clear, practical plan to do it. That's how we...
By the way, I don't want to say I'm like mad cynical, and I also don't want to say I might be on some dangerous ground here, right? But is he rolling his R's more in this debate than he usually does because he thinks it's going to play well with Latinos that are watching? Because it definitely, I keep hearing him doing that, like Rodriguez. Like, it's just like, it's there all the time. And I don't know if he normally talks like that. You'd be amazed the shit politicians do. You would be amazed the shit people
unleash the economy. That's how we revive the.
But I don't remember him rolling his R's this much.
Constitutional republic, rather than this technocracy and aristocracy in the administrative state.
Response, please.
My godmother was Indian. She never rolled her R's.
I think one of the signature accomplishments
never had to roll an R in her life.
Was in just a few short years. We achieved. Energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy for the first time in 75 years. But on day one, Joe Biden declared a war on energy, which was no surprise because when Joe Biden ran for president, he said he was going to end fossil fuels. And they've been working overtime to do that ever since.
Not a bad idea.
If I'm president of the United States, we're going to open up federal
Old
lands.
Sleepy Joe might have had a point, mate.
American energy. We're going to have an all-of-the-above energy strategy. And I have a plan that actually would not only reclaim energy independence, but in 2006, America lost our position as the leading energy producer on Earth. I believe in the next 10 years, with the right policies and experienced leadership in the White House, we can reclaim our role as the leading energy producer on Earth, and that'll grow the American economy for generations to come.
Not too many generations with them finite resources, but I like it.
No, Governor Haley.
So, the first thing I'll say is what I saw at the United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president who is against energy independence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against. You did it.
By the way, she's going to sting him here, and she's right. Ron DeSantis, you can go look this up. There was a report about it last year in the is it the Tampa Bay Times or is it the Tampa Bay Chronicle? I can't remember. Anyway, it's in there. You can go find it. Basically, what happened was he sort of said, like, listen, fracking's cool. I'm about that shit. But then, like, in Florida, they banned fracking. She is right here. He's laughing, like he's doing that. This is so preposterous. Please don't Google it. Please, no one Google it.
He always talks about what happens
Don't
on day
Google
one.
it, whatever you do.
Watch out,
I
because
did
what
do
happens
that.
on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't have to take.
Governor DeSantis, you were mentioned. You have the right to respond. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs. And we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing. And we are going to lower your gas prices. We are going to get that job done because it's important for our national security. It's important for jobs. And that's one of the best ways to drive down inflation.
Ron. Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis.
So let me only answer that because this is ridiculous.
This question is for you.
Our voters enacted a constitutional amendment.
You banned it before there was a vote, Ron.
No, it's not true.
You banned it before they voted, and not only that, fracking wasn't. They didn't vote on fracking.
She's just totally wrong. They voted it in. That's what we did. Onshore, we do it in Florida. We don't have as much as maybe West Texas, but we do it.
And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, by the way. I'm not saying that, but he did do it. It's weird he doesn't want to freaking own that shit. And just say Florida's different.
And that's what's going to happen.
And the voters didn't
Can't do it everywhere.
We are moving on with this question for Governor DeSantis. Governor, excuse me, we cannot talk over each other. We must respect each other's time. My apologies for that.
I'm ready, Stuart.
Governor DeSantis, this is your question. The Biden administration is hell-bent on student loan forgiveness, but you say colleges should be on the hook when graduates cannot pay their debt. How does that address the cost of college? The cost of college itself?
Because the colleges are going to have to make a decision. Do we expand the gender studies department, knowing some of those graduates may not have great learning opportunities? No, they're going to focus on the things that really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11, because I was just at the 9/11 memorial with the families, my wife and I were invited. It's very touching to be there, and it affected my life because I ended up joining the military as a result of that. I had been a blue-collar kid, minimum wage in Dunedin, Florida. I ended up getting through Yale and Harvard Law School and somehow came out more conservative than when I went in.
You're a regular Pat Tillman.
Had a lot of opportunities to make money, but I wanted to serve, and I'll never forget coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American, and I think being able to serve, and I'll be the first president elected since 1988 who's actually served overseas in a war, I think that's going to help me as commander-in-chief to know how you see these issues and understand that there are real lives at stake for people.
And of course, remember, he was serving as legal advisor
as well, and we thank him for
to
that.
the Navy.
Senator
He was basically
Scott, the
a
national debt
lawyer.
has nearly doubled in your time in office.
Jag, is it, or whatever they
approval rate
fucking
for
call him.
Congress is at a mere
As opposed to a
19%.
jag-off.
If this were a business, you'd
Got
probably
him.
all be fired in Washington, but you're here tonight looking for a promotion. In 2013, Governor Haley hired you for the Senate. I'd like you to tell her why you should be promoted to CEO of the nation instead of her.
Certainly. One of the things I'd say is if you look at our national debt of $33 trillion, I would love to have an opportunity to have this country pass a balanced budget amendment. That would constrain the spending in Washington in the same fashion that it does in every state in our nation, number one. Number two, if you want to actually reduce our national debt, you have to grow our economy. In order to grow our economy, you need to create about 10 million jobs to grow our economy at 5%. You can do that in 3 specific sectors. Number one, the energy sector. We could create between 3 and 3.5 million jobs if we unleashed all of our energy resources. America is we're the richest country if you combine coal, gas, and oil. Why not unleash all of our resources?
Unleash is the fucking right word, Tim. Unleash it, Tim. Unleash. India are pumping out their fucking carbon footprint. China's ramping up their carbon footprint. Let's unleash it. Let's unleash the fossil fuels, Tim. Because then you know, those people that are like roasting alive every summer, you know, they can afford aircon.
Brought the unemployment rates for African
and
Americans,
no problem,
Hispanics,
right?
and Asians to the lowest.
And then we'll just unleash some more fossil fuels.
And a 70-year low for women.
Governor Haley, would you think you would?
And then we'll just turn up the aircon.
I appreciate Tim. We've known each other a long time, but he's been there 12 years and he hasn't done any of that. He hasn't. They've only given 4 budgets on time in 40 years. He was part of that.
He looks genuinely shocked. Nikki's out of pop at him. They're generally very cordial with each other as well, but Nikki's swinging for the fences tonight.
12 years. Where have you been?
Where have you been, Tim? Round your house for dinner? He looks so hurt. Like, I was round your house for tea and biscuits just the other day. How are you doing this to me, Nikki?
All these guys have said
here's the fact,
and I appreciate a lot of the things they're saying.
Nikki
I'm
Haley,
the only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida, and that's what it's all about. You can always talk, but when it gets hot in there, when they're shooting arrows at you, are you going to be stand up for parents' rights, to keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those things? And in the state of Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. We have won the big fights. We have turned our state into a Republican state. People respond to leadership. I've done it while others have talked about it.
CEO, we actually have a CEO of the White House, which is what I think we need. If I may just briefly interject here, we need a zero-based budgeting. That's the way businesses are actually run. Start with 0 as the baseline for the budget, and then see what's actually necessary. There isn't a blue state or a red state in this union that does it. The federal government doesn't do it.
There it is
but
again.
Successful companies, including the ones
sure
that I
he's
built
doing
as
it
a
more.
CEO, will do it.
I didn't pick up on it at all last time.
In the White House to get that done.
Governor Burgum runs a state that way.
Yeah,
Yes,
tech
go
questions,
ahead.
you didn't ask the only guy that's been in tech. You have energy questions, you don't ask anything. But I'm just going to say right now, when you say nobody else has done it, the energy plans that have all been announced in the last month by these other folks on stage, we're already doing it in North Dakota. The border plans they're already talking about, we've got troops down at the border flying helicopter missions from North Dakota, from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations from inflicting the invasion and the mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already doing it. And it's not saying when nobody else done the big fights. North Dakota was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. WOTUS, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. To say that nobody's fighting the big fights, just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security, have been talking about it since day one, and now finally, good, we're having the conversation about it, but we've got the answer in North Dakota.
Governor Burgum, let's talk big government.
Bergmentum, it's happening.
Questions for you. Big government keeps getting bigger.
It does.
1/5 of all new jobs this year have been created by the government. Governor Burgum, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it has been a century since any president has done that. Why would you be any different?
Well, because we've done it in North Dakota. When I took office, we shrunk the state budget general fund by 27% in the first 4 months I was office, and all the trains still running on time. Why? Because you had a business leader that was actually there. Inside of every government job, there's 10 or 20% of mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that even the state and federal employees don't want to do, and you can engineer that work out of the job. That would free up right there 20% of 2 million civilian employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs.
I know, the old trains are on time, guys. Don't worry about it.
In generating taxes instead of being paid by taxes. This is totally possible to do it if you have somebody that understands, because having worked in technology for 30 years, everything we had to do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right. Governor DeSantis.
Back to you.
I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states.
Yeah, you see, the thing with Burgum is, right, he reminds me a lot of when Kasich was running during the Trump sideshow. And I obviously religiously watched all those debates as well. And what you do is you find, the moderate Republicans. They exist. Obviously you get conditioned in the media to think that there's no such thing as a moderate Republican. Joe Biden's going to do another address tomorrow, I think, to talk about the extreme, mega, MAGA Republicans that are engaged in a fascist takeover of this country. He'd probably do it, with a blood red light on again, flanked by the military, because he's the great unifier, is old Joe. No, there are. Was that tonight? Great, looking forward to it. There are Republicans that don't talk shit. When the problem with the American political system is if you talk too much sense, and answer the questions at a reasonable tone, and you don't engage in the game, which is to treat it like an entertainment product, you don't generate excitement. You don't get donors. You don't get, like lobbyists. You don't get media coverage. You don't get all the things you need to snowball a campaign. And I remember listening to like Kasich, as I said, in the Trump years, and I was like, what? Actually, I'm not saying I really like this dude and like everything he's got to say policy-wise, but, at least he respects the moderator's time, he answers the question, he's talking a lot about policy. They're the things I want from a politician. I want you to talk about policy. I want to know what you're going to do if you get my vote. And that's all it ever used to be. If you ever pull up, by the way, if you ever want to know how far American politics has fallen, go back and watch some of the debates from like the 70s and 80s, even the 80s, right? And go look at some of the presidential candidate debates on YouTube and listen to how civilized they are by contrast. Listen to how people address policy issues. People allow each other to finish what they're saying. There's uninterrupted crosstalk and an actual debate, because essentially these aren't debates. They say they're debates. What they are is you make a point, you make a point, you make a point, you make a point. Maybe we have some bickering, but that's not a debate. A debate is, this is what I believe. You believe something different. Let's discuss that topic at length and see if a consensus can be found or a clear winner of the discussion can be found. The McCain-Obama campaign, like 2008 was gnarly. Like the post-Bush years were dirty. The Bill Clinton 92 was dirty as fuck. The Ross Perot emerging as the wild card, then mysteriously dropping out after Republicans threatened to release naked pictures of his daughter or something. Politics really had a sea change probably post-Reagan. And there's a great book about it. I think it's just called The Red and the Blue. Let me if you're ever interested. Yeah, it's The Red and the Blue by Steve Kornacki. It's called The 1990s and the Birth of Political Tribalism. I've got a copy up there on the shelf. It's a fantastic read, even though it is from an MSNBC correspondent who does blame the Republicans, not without evidence or substantiating evidence. But, it talks about Bill Clinton and his campaign, and it talks about Newt Gingrich, and it's critical of Clinton. But yeah, when you look at by the time it got to the head-to-heads with like Clinton and Gingrich, it was ugly. I mean, the politics in the 90s. It was just gross. Like there was just a lot of really, that was the sea change. So yeah, if anyone goes back beyond that point and you look in the 80s and the 70s, you'll see a much more civilized kind of politics. Now, yeah, it's no coincidence that obviously that a lot happened. Reagan, for example, essentially paved the way for the birth of modern news when he repealed the balance regulations for news networks because he felt Republicans weren't given a fair shake in media. And then obviously that enables Fox News to take on its broadly editorial stance, and everybody is Fox News now. It's CNN's Fox News, MSNBC's Fox News. MSNBC is especially Fox News, arguably worse than Fox News in my opinion. And that environment, it's just not conducive. It's just not conducive to civilized political discourse anymore. And unfortunately, someone like Burgum, he's not an exciting candidate. He's that like middle of the road, moderate Republican, does a good job, in his state, but never a serious candidate for election. Meanwhile, you see Vivek and everyone's like, even myself included, oh, wow, the GOP's got a new star, because I'm looking at it through the lens of what the American political system is, not what it should be. So anyway, yeah, but I mean, Burgum's all right, but the third debate is on the 8th of November, and I think that has a higher cutoff point than this one in terms of polling. So there's a high chance Burgum won't even be there. He's the next man to go, potentially.
Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them.
The book is called The Red and the Blue.
Abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona.
It's just called The Red and the Blue by Steve Kornacki.
Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a
he gets around this Ron DeSantis
every
guy.
Single person has purpose and worth. We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and that is wrong.
Let me ask Governor Christie. Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans...
Yes, I will.
Okay, Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey, Dana. Then
why are all these other states losing?
Well, because they don't have leaders in those states who are leading the fight the way it should be led. And in fact is, look, I was a governor here of the only blue state that's represented up here. This is where the fight is really tough for Republicans. And those are the states that we're going to have to try to win if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did was 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I kept saying no because I believe in life, but I also believe in states' rights. And I think we fought hard against Roe versus Wade for decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk to people and make them understand that if you're pro-life, you have to be pro-life for the entire life, not just the 9 months in the womb. And we talked a lot about fentanyl tonight, and we haven't spoken one moment about treatment. But we need to make sure that for the drug-addicted 16-year-old on the floor of the county lockup, her life is precious too. And we need to be providing treatment to cure this
it's
as
totally
a
off the
disease
beaten
that
path,
it is.
Christy,
if you're
but
pro-life, you got to be
it's rare to hear
pro-life for the
empathetic
entire
answers
life.
from
We start
Republicans,
talking like
so you're
that,
okay.
They're going to do what I did in the blue state, which was get reelected with 61% of the vote and won 70% of independents and 51% of Latinos because I told them the truth from my heart.
Thank you. Vice President Pence.
He's got a big heart,
The latest
Chris Christie.
Univision poll found that 73% of Latino voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country. And I'm incredibly proud of that tax cut and tax reform bill. I worked on Capitol Hill to help get that bill passed into law, the largest tax cut in American history. We saw literally the lowest unemployment ever recorded for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, 50-year low for women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm, and it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans and for every American. So help me God.
Senator Scott, reaction?
Yes, there's no doubt that if you lead by example, it's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done.
Yeah, she
Nikki
fucking knifed you in the back on live TV, dog. What are you gonna say about that?
In South Carolina.
It's outrageous.
About someone who has never
That's
seen
laughing
a
about it.
dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina.
Right, I'll play that back again. He hits the back a little bit there.
Highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10-cent gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on curtains in a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what that 10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will pass it if you will give us three.
All you have to do is go watch Nikki Haley on YouTube.
If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas tax, which is why it didn't happen.
Exactly, Ron.
Secondly,
I'll just tell you.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtains, do your homework,
Nikki
Tim, because
Haley,
Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get it
You
done.
hung them on your curtains.
They were there before I even showed up at the residence. You are scrapping. You are scrapping.
I'm not scrapping.
You know I fought
Here's a fact.
taxes.
Here's a fact, though.
He has to know, like.
I loaded up our
You wanted a gas tax increase, and then
There it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do not intend to go ahead like this. In fact, we're about to take a commercial break.
I think we should take
we'll
a break.
Have more of the second Republican debate live from the Reagan Presidential Library in just a few moments.
Do you trust our government and where the economy?
This. Oh wow. Black Rifle coffee.
What if someone tells the truth, but it's labeled as misinformation?
These robots
why do you still have
they're
now?
real guys. I told you, I'm ready for the Mad Max future.
And we'll
I'm ready.
Back to the final minutes.
I can't even drive. I'll be one of those dudes all shiny and chrome.
It's now obvious
Witness
that if you all
me.
stay in the race, former President Donald Trump wins the nomination. None of you have indicated that you're dropping out. So, Which one of you
hang
on
on,
stage
hang
tonight?
on. I don't want to impugn my reputation. I don't drive. I reckon I could figure it out. How hard can it be? You've seen some of the morons that drive. So, yeah, I just don't drive. Never had a license. Yeah, never had a license. Driven a tractor, but fuck it. I like being driven. Listen, I sort of drivers get fucked. You get fucked on petrol prices, road tax, car tax. Fucking now, what's that fucking thing where if your car's like older than 2000, sorry, younger than 2000, no, yeah, older than 2006, you can't drive on certain roads, otherwise you have to pay like fines. The ULEZ or something it's called, right? I don't know, dude. Just sounds fucking, yeah, there it is. Just sounds fucking like, fuck having a car, dude. Like, listen, I'll let the Uber driver deal with that shit. Fuck that. You're all right, man. And that's not bad peasant no more. ULEZ noobs. That's all right. You've brought it back to esports. Round of applause for you in the chat. Yeah, excellent. ULEZ noobs. Well done, well done. Great stuff. It's nice to have a better class of audience. People that can type funny things that make me laugh. I approve. I know it sounds made up, but it ain't. Because I got a mate who's always raging about it. He's a bit of a gammon, you know. And he votes Conservative. He loves the monarchy. He's one of them. And he's a lawyer. And he's got some fucking super expensive Merc or something from like back in the day. He's always pissing and moaning about how he has to pay fines. And I'm like, you could just not drive on the roads or get a newer car. Nah, but it's a classic, Rich. It's a classic. You wouldn't understand. You don't even drive, do you? Fucking silly little cunt. Yeah. Just one of them, innit? But yeah, good guy. We have lots to talk about.
Should be voted off the island.
Oh, here we go.
Please use your
The worst question ever in debate history. Get your gold. Right, she literally compares, that's why the stream's titled what it was. She literally compares the presidential race to Survivor. Like, I mean...
And welcome back to the final minutes. I could go another hour, but we only have a few minutes. And candidates, it's now obvious that if you all stay in the race, former President Donald Trump wins the nomination. None of you have indicated that you're dropping out. So, which one of you on stage tonight should be voted off the island? Please use your marker to write your choice on the notepad in front of you. 15 seconds. Starting now, of the people on the stage, who should be? I'm absolutely serious.
With all due respect, I mean, we're here, like, we're happy to debate, but I think that's
nice one, Ron.
disrespectful to my fellow competitors.
Nobody wants to.
See, big W there.
Let's do some questions. Let's talk about the future of the country.
I'll answer it. I want to be clear
Let me
about
ask you this.
If I may.
Let me ask you something.
Yep.
Then, if you won't answer that question, let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
What is your mathematical path,
Yes.
Governor DeSantis, in order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race?
So polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents.
Right.
And we're going to take the case of the
It's
people in these early
primaries.
states.
It doesn't
We're gonna
mean
do it
anything.
state-by-state
You're
direction.
not even
And
legally
why? Because as Reagan
obligated
said in his
to
thing,
nominate
this
the
is
person
our
who wins
time
the
for
primary.
choosing.
That's been
We
held
are
up by
not
the
getting
Supreme
a
Court,
mulligan
for
on the
fuck's sake.
2024 election.
You just don't have to
Republicans
do
have
it.
lost 3 straight elections in a row.
This
We're
is
supposed to have a red
theater.
wave
It's
with
political
inflation
theater.
at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something. Governor Christie, I believe, excuse me, Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something on the card. Who was it?
No, but I'll certainly tell you.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now. And the reason I vote him off the island,
but any of the people on the stage.
You know what?
This is another W for Christie, I gotta say.
Respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have respect for every man and woman on this stage because they've done it. Vivek, put your hand down for a second, would you? I still got time, dude. So chill out. Here, look. This guy has not only divided our party, he's divided families. all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation anymore if they disagree with Donald Trump.
Governor
He needs to be voted
candidates.
off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
Can we give Vivek 15 seconds?
All right, you've got 15 seconds,
I
Vivek.
appreciate it, Tina. Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president. But the America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of this country.
He's baiting it up.
The question is, who's
He's
going to unite
baiting
this
it up
country and take
to
the America
you,
First agenda
the people.
to the next
He's
level?
baiting it
when
up.
we rallied behind the cry to make America great again, we did not just hunger for a single man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence. So yes, I will respect Donald Trump and his legacy because it's the right thing to do. But we will unite this country to take the America First agenda to the next level, and that will take a different generation to do it.
That does it. I repeat, that does it. For the second Republican primary debate, live from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
Thank you to all the candidates. We've loved having you here tonight, and we will see you out on the campaign trail.
Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good night. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. There, look, and then they all just shake hands anyway. I actually think Nikki Haley genuinely dislikes Vivek, though. She moved away from him like real quick. Like she didn't want to fucking stick around any longer than she had to. Like, but everyone else, all still mates. Now, just a couple of things that have come in it's so ridiculous. So this, for some reason, after Christie's performance in the debate, this picture of him started doing the rounds on Twitter. It's just so ridiculous. I can't figure out what's going on. He's the first man I've seen that might have a gussie. I don't know, dude. It's like fucking unreal. Like, it's so crazy a shape. Like, I'm a fat boy, but it's all in the beer gut, you know? Like, holy shit. Like, look at the legs. There's some thunderous fucking thighs, dude. Like, holy shit. So I enjoyed that. And I'm just going to check if this is safe for stream. It is. I want to give a shout out to El Gapo. You might have seen him in the chat. Don't be afraid. He recently went viral because he was in a video. He got pepper sprayed by police and was going, "It tastes like JD." So you might have seen him. But he makes funny pictures and thumbnails and whatnot. There's a few of them. So he did this one. Which is just fucking great. This probably will be in the thumbnail, so a little preview. We can get meta. I'm putting the thumbnails in the video for which the thumbnails are being created. But there you go. You see, Jimmy, because we had Vivek and Chris Christie, we had Jimmy Neutron. Boy Genius. He did have the Jimmy Neutron hair. I called that. I don't even watch Jimmy Neutron. But there it is. Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. And of course, you got Chris Christie there in the background. So anyway, we'll wrap up with a little kind of reaction to the stream. What happens now is November 8th, I think it is. Let me just get the exact date. Yeah, the third debate is on the 8th. And this is where things, for me, like, it's super early and people talking about fucking make or break and all this bullshit and, DeSantis is floundering and blah, blah. So, 8th of November, this is where I think actually DeSantis's kind of momentum will change a little bit because it's flat while the media pay this disproportionate amount of attention to Trump. And by the way, I'll also just add, if Trump doesn't want to come to the fucking debates, don't ask any questions about Trump. Don't talk about Trump. Don't mention Trump. If you don't want to be in the process, homie, don't fucking talk about him. It's as simple as that. The reality for me is that, I say, it's a suicide pact if the GOP put him forward. He is doomed to fail one way or another, but because the media need him to run and the DNC need him to run, that everyone's kind of talking about him like he's some sort of valid candidate, and it just isn't. Look, this is essentially what you're on course for in America. You're going to have one candidate who can't speak in the debates because his lawyers don't want him to, and an incumbent president who won't speak in a debate because his doctors don't want him to. And it's like, you know, this isn't good. What needs to happen is we need to acknowledge, the DNC need to acknowledge that Biden's fucking toast and he's bananas and he needs to go. And, you know, Newsom's been running the shadow campaign the whole time. I'm sure you've seen him. I'm sure you've seen Newsom. You know, he was out the other day, like, he's going to be like, I want Ron DeSantis to debate me. And Ron DeSantis said, okay, I'll debate you. And Newsom turned around and went, lol, that guy can't be president. Look how easily baited he was. Lol baited. He said lol baited. Look how easily baited he was in debating me, and I'm not running for president. But, of course, Newsom is running for president. A lot of people are saying he's getting positioned for 2028. Biden could be gone. Like, I mean, literally, like mentally, you know, any moment now. He's clinging on by his last firing neuron. There's nothing left of the man. And all these problems are coming in relation to, you know, the GOP Oversight Committee, well, you know, and the impeachment hearings, more and more revelations of emails, more revelations of, you know, like, ooh, who paid this and who did what. The DNC should just cut him fucking adrift, man. And he can go, if he refuses to go out with a nice little speech and say, I realize I'm too old. If he refuses to do that, then, you know, you've got the nukes to fire, because we all know he's a dirty politician. I mean, does anyone even fucking doubt that at this point? They're all dirty. So, I mean, it's a moot point. Anyway, so I remember back in 2020 when we were doing this, I said there's a realistic chance you could see Newsom, because remember, I expected Biden to lose. I said there was a real chance that 2024 would be Newsom DeSantis going head to head. And while I don't like either candidate particularly, it at least gets us away from fucking octogenarians running the country into the ground, and therefore represents an improvement of two old guys yelling at each other from their fucking basements. And that's still on for me. There's still a potential for that to happen. But anyway, we now will see whether Ron can, like, shift perceptions about his campaign, because it's going to be in Miami. He's going to be in home soil. He's obviously well liked there. He's going to get a huge pop for everything he says. And also, as well, they raised the threshold of polling to be there. So chances are, unfortunately, Burgum won't be present. Asa Hutchinson won't be present. So, you know, that doesn't mean they're out of the race, by the way. It just means they won't be present at the debate because they don't poll enough. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. But for me, I still think that DeSantis is the nominee for the Republican Party. I think he beats Biden. I think his debate performance has been poor. But ultimately, I think I think he's the guy that you can point to his track record, and the country is sick of Biden's administration. Like, there's no, even Democrats. It's just, they can't publicly admit that because Trump is still around. If Trump wasn't around, it wouldn't be a factor for many of the floating voters that decide the election. It's just the prospect of Trump again is so existentially terrifying to so many people that they are like, I'll take fucking President Applesauce for brains and 4 more years of the economy tanking and God knows what fucking else, as I watch an old man fall down flights of stairs repeatedly on the biggest world stage, because I just don't want Trump back in the White House, right? And so, you know, that's fine if that's your stance, although, you know, I'm of the opinion if you believe a candidate isn't competent mentally to serve, you shouldn't vote for them ever. But anyway, the next debate, so the next time we have to suffer through that, is going to be November 8th. So probably around about November 9th, we'll do another watch along. And it should be a little bit more streamlined. Less people to work around. It looks like, you know, Ron's going to get most of the play in Miami, I'd say. They're going to ask him the most questions and set him up for the big grandstanding. But anyway, you're all up to date. Now, you've seen it. You've suffered like I have. It's 1 a.m. I'm going to have a glass of scotch and try and forget about the horror. What I will do next time I throw up a political stream, and I might do like a little addendum to this, a separate video. Because while this was going on, Donald Trump actually went to Detroit, I think it was, or it was a little bit down the ways from Detroit. He was in Michigan addressing that strike. And you have to remember, Joe Biden went for 15 minutes, and the press said it was historical. He joined a picket line, mumbled into a megaphone for 15 minutes while getting side-eye from all the workers that he's put on that picket line. And then he fucked off on his jet again. His dog attacked another Secret Service agent for the 11th time now. And everyone said it was historic because the media in America are basically the same as North Korea, Russia, and China. They just worship glorious leader. But Democrat glorious leader. But Trump actually went to the same place and did an hour-long speech. It was one of his better speeches. I think Trump is showing a lot of signs of cognitive decline, actually. It's become a little bit apparent to me. Like, I think probably the combined stress of all the indictments, you know, he's fighting on a lot of fronts and having to campaign and raise money because essentially it's his legal fund is really taking its toll. But also, he's just not the same dude he was 4 years ago. He was saying crazy things. Like he said Jeb Bush invaded Iraq and he mixed up Obama and Hillary, and he started doing this thing now where he like says, I call her beautiful Hillary now. She's a beautiful woman. I love Hillary. He's like, you know, and I didn't put the special counsel in because, you know, that was just what you say to get elected and stuff. So he's like, I don't know, he's just not the same guy. He's not the same candidate. Even if you were a loyal Trumpist, you're not getting the Donald Trump of 2016 in 2024. And yeah, you know, he's 77. Like, he's old. You know, it's like I can disagree with some of the stuff that's happened to him, but the best thing for the Republican Party, the best thing for American politics at this stage is, look, you did it, man. You got to be president against all the odds, right? And look what it's cost everyone for you to have that. Let's just, you know, pump the fucking brakes on the Trump train. And the GOP need to unhook themselves. They need to get back to wanting to win elections, not through populism, but on their fucking policies. Let's see if Americans fuck with what Republicans have got to offer. Let's see if Americans are willing to trade off certain things to get the economy heading in the right way and all this other stuff. It's like, that's what an election should be. Not this fucking cult of personality with batty old fucking men who've lost their marbles, like just bickering. It's got to be better than that.